Welcome to Chart of Chess Club's YouTube channel, and in today's video we're going to celebrate the last day of Women's History Month by going over a game played by 8-time US Women's Champion Grandmaster Irina Krush. This game is not only great to show how to play great positional sacrifices, but also how to study openings, and in particular something called tabiyas, which are positions that arise in openings that are very familiar for that opening. Alright, so this game was played in the American Cup in 2024. And Irina Krush plays pawn to c4, and we're going to get a Nimzo-Indian in this game. It starts out as in English, but we're going to quickly transpose to a Nimzo-Indian structure, which normally starts with d4, knight to f6, c4, pawn to e6, knight to c3, and then bishop to b4. We're going to see we're going to get a very similar structure here. And this actually comes from an article about tabiyas. And tabiyas are familiar positions that we get in certain openings, right? So if you play the Nimzo-Indian, you're going to be familiar with this. And I'm going to keep the little annotations on because we can see after capture, right around here, some people would start to be out of theory, but this goes on for quite a while. So bishop d3, right? Putting your bishop onto the light squares. You have all your pawns on dark squares. That's going to be your good bishop. Pawn to c5, attacking the center. And then knight to e2. Knight to e2 may be our first strange move, right? If we don't know this opening, but we can figure it out. If we play knight to f3, that's the move that I would go for, right? If I didn't know any better, it looks the most common, attacking the center. That's normally where my knight goes. But then I could play bishop to g4 and pin our knight to our queen. And I don't want to play bishop to e2 because I already moved my bishop onto a very good square. So it makes sense that the knight's going to e2 for that reason. And also, I just want to move f3 in general, right? I want to play f3 and then e4 if I can, right? Get more pawns into the center. So pawn to b6, we're probably going to see a fianchetto, castle, and then bishop to a6. That's a great move. That light squared bishop was very, very strong for white. And so black's going to say, let me trade off that bishop because my light squared bishop isn't really doing much in this position. And so this seems like a great move. Pawn to f3, we're going to go grab the center. Rook goes to e8. Not going to let them grab the center. Knight to g3, getting out of the way. Capture. Knight comes out. Bishop to b2. All the pieces are developed. And 14 moves later, we have our first tabiya in the Nimzo-Indian, something that if you play this opening a lot, you should be very familiar with the structure and also the main ideas of how to play. And for white, the main ideas are very simple. Let's go grab the center. Let's push that pawn to e4. It's supported by the f3 pawn. And let's see if I can get 2 pawns in the center. For black, obviously, we're going to try to stop that. But there's some key differences in this structure that we need to know because in the game, Queen d7 was played. That was a mistake, and black was pretty much losing for the rest of the game, even though it seems like a perfectly natural move. I'm going to go turn off these annotations just so that they're not distracting. All right, so what does black try to play in this position? Well, I looked it up. The best move, not an easy one to find, it is pawn to h5. And pawn to h5 seems like a harmless move, right? It says, okay, you're trying to attack the side. You're going after my knight, who's going to be a big supporter of this e4 push. And my first thought is, what if I just play h4? It's normally what I play, right? Side pawns, let's just lock them up. Well, now no one's guarding the knight. So there's a fun line that black can play to immediately attack. They play queen c7. Okay, someone needs to guard a knight. What if I just guard with king to f2? All right, kicking the queen away, fair enough. And now some crazy moves by black. You play rook takes e3. Okay, let's get greedy. Let's try to take this rook. Are they going to play queen takes knight? Nope. Knight to g4 check. All right, I'll just take the knight. Queen takes on g3 check. Okay, I know I'm going to get checked a bit, but maybe I'm okay here. My king's in the center. It doesn't have too many spaces to move. But let's see if white can survive this position. Another sacrifice. Capture, check, and already we're in a lot of trouble here. Black only has a rook and a queen, but they're working together. And they're going to continue to gobble up some of these pawns. Versus this dark squared bishop can't move. This rook cannot move. This king cannot move, right? How's the queen going to protect when the rook's already out here? So this position would just be dead loss for white. And it all comes from that small h5 move, right? So we can't play h5, h4. that wouldn't be allowed. So, okay, this pawn's coming after the knight. I'm going to need someone else to help guard that e4 square. If I play something like rook a to e1, well, then we get a position like this, and we can see that, okay, black's kind of accomplished their goal of kicking white away, and now white has to find new plans of attacking the center, and black can continue to fight for the center in different ways. Queen to c7, bringing the rooks in, chipping away with c takes on d4, or maybe pushing the pawn to kick the queen. But there's some little nuanced ideas that black can play to try to save this position. All right, but none of that was played in the game. Instead, we got queen to d7, which is already a small mistake. And Irina Krush is very familiar with this position. In fact, she had a very similar game where she beat an international master a few years ago, and she pretty much did the same exact technique that we'll see. So pawn to e4, that makes sense. Let's grab the center. Capture, capture. And now knight to e5. Knight to e5 is kind of one of those fun moves that's like, hey, look, you can't take my knight because there's a pin. That's a weird spot to put the knight, and it helps me go over here to the castle. But it doesn't really help the long-term plans. It's just kind of a fun one-off move. So queen to e2 helps keep the queen on the light squares, still in the action, makes sense. And now this pawn actually is attacking this knight. Sure, c takes could be played, but then white's just going to take with their c pawn, and then their bishop's going to be just really one move away from becoming very active. And the knight goes over here. All right, so in this position, seems pretty even. It does seem like white has an edge, right? We got these two pawns that we can try to push up the board. But whenever we push one pawn, the knight's going to hop, get a great outpost, and try to stop that, right? So either way we do that, that's what black is going to try to accomplish. So the question is, what does white play in this position to get the best outcome, the best attack going? Well, in this position, Irina Krush didn't hesitate to play rook takes on f6, which is a brilliant move because it's a sacrifice and it's a positional sacrifice. There's no giant tactics that jump out, all of a sudden. So we're not sacking this rook to immediately get it back with a fork or to get a checkmate. But positionally, this makes a lot of sense, right? So after, obviously, pawn has to take, this castle is completely broken. It's harder for black to use that knight to defend the center, so white easily gets the center. And their worst piece on that board, when I saw bishop b2, I'm not familiar with its opening, when I saw bishop b2, I went, really? That's what we're going for? We had all these pawns in the center, we had that pawn on d5. How's that bishop ever going to get out? But now, we can see, wow, if I can get this bishop into the action, it's going to have a huge effect attacking that castle king, because that king doesn't have a dark squared bishop to protect. So with that said, bishop wants to go there. This knight just got a number of valuable outposts. And of course, this rook is very easy to jump into the attack. The queen's already good. And for black, you have two rooks, but I don't see any open files. So how are we going to use those rooks? The rest of the game is pretty simple. Knight goes to attack, family fork. Obviously, Irina Krush is playing against an international master and actually a U.S. women's champion herself. So not going to fall for a family fork. Rook to e6 defends, pushing the pawn. This does two things. It attacks the rook, but now it also helps to free the bishop. So we can see how the bishop and knight going here, incredibly deadly. The knight goes to e5. Great spot, right? It's an outpost. It's holding the position together for now. Pawn to h3. That is a great low prophylactic move that's going to stop any chances of black trying to get back into this game. Right? It stops the knight from moving. It stops the queen from moving. It's a great little move to throw in there. So queen to e7, rook to f1, rooks come over, and now the knight reroutes. And that's the best part about this position. This knight has so many different ways to attack. Now we can go to this outpost. We could go here with check. Maybe we get an Arabian mate in the corner of the board. I don't know. Let's find out. Queen goes away because we don't want this fork to come onto the board. The knight goes over there, and this is one of my favorite moves of the game. King to h8. Just take the rook. Just take the rook, right? You're already up, down the exchange. If you take the rook, you still have an edge because of those double pawns. But Irina Krush goes, nope, my knight is so active, And again, I don't see any open files for these rooks to start attacking. This knight is amazing. It's cutting off the queen completely. Let's keep the knight on the board. So queen to h5, pawn to b5, just trying to do something on the queen side. Knight comes over. Again, the threats are everywhere. Every piece is attacking in this game. King moves over, attempting to help defend the f7 and f6 squares. Capture, pawn push, knight to g4. Queen comes over, and now knight takes on e5. Our knight was so good. Why are we just going to allow it to take? Well, we've been trying to break down this castle for a while. We'd like to play check and somehow get checkmate in the corner, but black has been holding this position for a bit. So we're going to play knight takes on e5. And black's move might surprise you. They play pawn c3. And now queen to c7. So they don't capture the knight. Well, what's the problem with capturing the knight here? Let's see. If I take with the queen, I lose my queen. It's fairly simple to understand. Okay, but if I take with the pawn, I could take with the bishop with check. And it looks like we get a free bishop. Now we're just up a piece. But the problem is, rook takes on f7 check. King has to either go in the corner or go right here. And this is checkmate. And so because of this tactic, this was the perfect time to just trade off for the knight. And so black has nothing to do. They just have to accept that they're losing their knight. The game goes on for a little bit, the knight now finding another outpost, this time completely abandoning the kingside attack and just saying, hey, I almost have 4 pawns here against really 1. I'm going to get another queen, no problem. Black captures on e4. Queen check, very nice pin. King goes to f8. Bishop takes on f6, and it's time to resign. And that's exactly what black does. Whenever you see this bishop just cutting off the king from moving, and we got a queen here, it's always the end of the game. When I think of like the Sicilian dragon for black, right? If you can sack that rook on c3, get the bishop over here and the queen on a5, it's just time to resign. That bishop is cutting off everything. And this knight on the outpost is just incredibly deadly, right? Black can't even exchange. There's nothing black can do to try to get back into this game. If they play nothing, if they try to just play, I don't know, pawn over here, we're going to have check. King only has 1 move to go to. We have another check. King can go over here. Another check. We're just getting kicked all around the board. It's going to be game over. This is just a horrible position. We can't sacrifice anyway. Like, we can't play like rook takes bishop or something crazy, trying to give back material. One, we're just simply down too much material after that knight took on e5. And again, we got these back rank problems. So if we don't play anything, check. Oh, can't go there, can't go there. That's just checkmate. What if we try to run away? Check. King goes over here. Rook check, getting a skewer. You can't bring the rook in because the knight's guarding that square too. And again, there's just no attacking chances that black ever had in this game. So how can we learn how to make these amazing sacrifices like Irina Krush made? Well, practice makes perfect, right? Irina Krush had experience in this opening. She had played it before, and she knew some of the themes. You know, she knew, like, probably from here, bishop b2, that even though this bishop doesn't look so great right now, it's pointed at the king. There's no bishops on the board for black. So it's a very strong piece if we can get it into the game, even if that means sacrificing a rook in order to break down that king side, right? Obviously, she knew pawn to e4 with f3, that's going to be a lethal combination. And as black, you got to know that, hey, if I don't have too many pawns in the center, if I only have 2 knights, I got to be very precise with how I deal with this center push from white. I got to know about those crazy moves like h5. I got to know to play queen to c7. I need to know when to take and when to push this pawn, right? All those things are going to help me hold on to this position. So this game is great not only for the crazy positional sacrifices, but just learning how to study tabiyas in general.